Oh wow, that looks horrible. Alright, here we go again. So here I got a planer. I can tell you one thing, it's old as dirt. It says H.B Smith, Machine Company, Smithville, New Jersey, USA. It's a 20-inch planer. It's got a feed drive on it. Deck height. There's a ruler here. This handle turns the shaft. There's a gear set right there. A couple other gear sets inside here to some threaded rods. And those threaded rods right there control the deck height. There's some other linkage and springs. Then there's these weights that you can move either direction depending on how much pressure you need on the roller. This is the gear reduction for the drive, because the input speed is going to be a lot faster than what the drive needs to be. So up here would be power in from a stationary engine or something, or a tractor. The belt comes down. There's a lever over here that moves that tensioner pulley. It drives this jack shaft here. This jack shaft has two different pulleys on it. Same with the corresponding side, so you can change the speed a little bit. It's geared reducted down to the drive roller. Smooth roller on the back is also drive. It's also got a weight right here that also looks adjustable. And that's for this guard. I'm not entirely sure why you would need to adjust that. I'll pick it up. Now here are the blades. I'm turning it backwards right now. This is the cutting edge. I was told this thing was left in working order, and by the way it looks, I believe it. Both blades look good. One thing to look for is any chips or damage in the blade itself. This one honestly looks great, so you shouldn't need to do too much to that to get it dialed in. It's got Babbitt bearings. This is where you'd put the oil in the top. And I got some sawdust in there. You'd put oil in here, and that's what goes down into the bearing itself to lubricate it. This side, I'm not sure why, but somebody put a Zerk fitting in there. So I guess they were putting grease to that one. So I'm not sure if the oil just runs out of it wicked fast or what the problem is. Overall, it's in pretty good shape. I don't know how long it's been sitting for. These rollers don't turn. The blade shaft does turn. This handle does turn. The threaded rods do turn. The deck here, the table itself, that doesn't really want to slide. Some of this gear stuff really doesn't want to move. I'll have to take some things apart, clean it, and lubricate it, and I'm sure this thing will come back around. Well, I got done cleaning every single lubrication hole I can find. Pulley here is stuck on the shaft. There. The more that oil gets worked in there, the better it's going to be. get shined back up. And so I'll probably just grab onto this with some pliers, probably near the edge in case I damage it. And it seems to be this bearing's the one that's stuck the most. The other one's not moving, but this little bit of movement I got, it's the bearing moving. And yeah, I guess that makes sense. I didn't totally realize that that slid up, but it does. There it goes. So I can't fully rotate it because it's trying to do everything. Gotta start working on that back roller. But so far that's been the biggest challenge, and that ain't that bad of a challenge. These pulleys need a good cleaning, and the belts are old. They don't really grip too well, but try to work with it here. So this is where power would come in from an engine. And of course we've got slippage on the belt on the other side. Slipping right here. I see some electrical tape here, so I put some gap tape on there, aka electrical tape, just to try to tighten up that belt some, which it's got pretty decent tension on it. I can't turn the shaft. Yeah, I guess I could. So release the tension on the belt over here. Just slip it off for right now, make it a little easier. Should be rotating this way. That's kind of a fiasco. It sat there for a long time. Got a hump right in the belt right there. Seems to be gripping now. I'll go back the way I had it. Belt tension. There, of course I can't spin this very fast and that's gear reducted, but this is turning. Currently the only thing that I need to truly free up on this thing is the table itself, up and down, which is just a slider because everything else to that seems to be free. So it's looking pretty good. Jeez, I'm into this, what, 10 minutes? Alright, so right now, this is a threaded rod on one side of the table. So these rods here, well, it's supposed to be hooked into this, which is the weight shaft, which holds down on the feed roller. This is obviously going to adjust the height of the table. The drive down below here is what the handle rotates. So I'm hoping I can just work it back and forth now that I've put plenty of juice to it. I've also juiced it from the top. Basically anything that you see needs to move, just put the juice to it. That's just a farmer thing. Not putting much pressure on this, I'm just trying to work it back and forth until it does what I want it to do. Well, so far it looks like on the gauge we're moving about 1/8, but it's going pretty hard. I really don't want to break this thing. Right there, it's going down. Oh, it's starting to feel a lot better. There, we've moved at least a ½ inch. better. It's starting to come into it. Right, so this is where I'm at. No, I did not paint it. I wiped it down with some oil. Unfortunately, when I was on my way back with this thing, there was a lot of salt on the road, and the thing got covered. I cleaned it off the best I could. I just put a light coating of oil on it. The paint actually is not bad on this thing. It's obviously not original paint. Somebody cared for it though and painted it up. I have some new skids under it. Hemlock 6x6s. I had to repair this lever. There's an old repair there where the old bolts are. You can see where a weld is, and I have a couple more bolts right there. It's plated on the back. That's cast iron for the belt tensioner here. Sharpened up the blades. Just used a flat stone, like the type of stone that you would use for sharpening knives. I think they call it a whetstone. I definitely sharpened up sharp, and it's probably hard to tell on camera, but the very edge of it, it's not straight. It's little tiny chips. So I'm not sure exactly how well the finish would be, but I can just see where it's at for now, get everything else figured out, and then I can go ahead and get the blades actually sharpened. But I just wanted to at least get the rust off. I don't know how long it's been sitting for, but it definitely has a lot of rust in places it shouldn't. The height's working good. I opened it up some so you can see right inside here. Everything is turning really well. Things have really freed up once an oil worked in. I had to straighten out the bar here for this weight, which is the adjustment for the feed roller here. I did notice it has this piece here. I have no idea what the reasoning to it is. Possibly some type of shrouding for the belts, but it's the only piece there. I also did notice there's this piece of wood. I don't know if somebody just put it there or there was supposed to be a piece of wood there. I guess the reasoning for it is guiding the shaft that is for the belt tension. I'm not sure. It's kind of hokey looking. But for the most part, everything has come around on it. It's definitely way easier to spin it and have everything rotate. Do need to figure this thing out here. I just have some electrical tape on there to tighten that up, but somehow I need to adjust the belt tension. It seems kind of odd the way that it is, but whatever. It's coming around. So the next thing I'm going to have to do is power it. I have a Ford 4-cylinder. This one right here. So my first dilemma is this shiv here takes 2 V-belts, but it does have a keyed shaft. I could size up that pulley and get a V-belt shiv on here so that I can match that motor. I don't know if 2 V-belts would be good enough for this. I mean, I would think it'd be somewhat comparable. These flat belts, you'd be surprised how much they grip. The other thing I got to figure out too is how fast this needs to rotate. And the other problem is the direction that it rotates. Because looking at the blade, it needs to rotate counterclockwise. And if you look at the front of that engine, it turns clockwise. So I can't just have the motor sit here with a belt to it because it'll turn the wrong way. But I could face the motor the other way. It'd get completely in the way of one end or the other. I'm not sure. I do need to cross that bridge though, because this thing is pretty well ready to go as it sits. Okay, so I'm working on my stationary engine orientation to the planer. If you're looking at this shiv on the planer, if you're looking directly at it, it's turning counterclockwise. Now here's my engine. If I'm looking at the shiv that's on the back of it, if I'm looking right at it, that's turning counterclockwise. Therefore, if I have a belt from these two in the orientation like this planer would be turning the correct direction. Because when you run a belt from one shiv to the other, they both turn the same direction. So this causes a problem because this side is the in-feed side of the planer. So one man would be putting the board into the planer, and as the board comes out, to the other side, you'd be working right over your engine, if not going right into your engine. I mean, sawdust would be falling on it. It just makes no sense. So I was trying to figure out how to do it a different way. So I'd prefer to have my engine like this. Now, if I'm looking at the fan, which is on the front of the engine, that turns clockwise. And if I'm looking at this sheave, it turns counterclockwise. So this orientation with the same belt setup would make this planer turn backwards. That's still no good. I don't want to do a jack shaft or anything weird. I'm trying to keep this as simple as I can. So I have either option of what belt style I want. Currently, the pulley on my engine is V-belt, and the one on the planer is flat belt. So a big advantage to flat belt that not everyone knows about is that you can put a half twist in it. So if you're looking at your pulleys, this would be a half twist orientation. Now what that is doing is multiple things. There's more contact surface that the belt is contacting on the pulleys, and contact surface means everything to a flat belt. It's just that much more grip. So also, this is turning clockwise here. This one is turning counterclockwise. So I can easily put my engine here, use a flat belt, put a half twist in it, and run this planer in the correct direction. It's just that simple. I can't do this with a V-belt, let alone I need multiple V-belts in order to have enough grip. So I'm going to set it up for flat belt. Currently, this is what I've come up with for the stationary engine. I just welded a piece of pipe that is 4.5 inches on the OD. I got it as true as I can get it. The frame that it was on is from an old generator that I had repurposed the engine for. There's rubber insulating it. I'm using an S10 radiator, and I believe S10 upper rad hose and S10 lower rad hose. I think I just got that lucky. There's this old box here for AC connections from the generator. It was already mounted here. I'm most likely going to put my electrical stuff in there, which is just going to consist of a key switch, temperature, and oil pressure at a minimum. I'm thinking about just putting a screw-in style oil pressure gauge just because it'd be really simple and it's already in the right location. I'm getting ready to do an oil change on it. This is the exhaust I've come up with. Just a generic tractor muffler. This is the original battery box to the generator set that's already in its original spot. This engine just happened to sit on there pretty good. For rubber, I cut the sidewall out of an old tire. Well, that wasn't tight at all. Oh wow, that looks horrible. What is this stuff? Oh. Has a very gray color. It's because of moisture. I'm unsure of what else. There's definitely some stuff in that oil that should not be in that oil. And here's the Wix oil filter we're going to put on it. One's better than the other. Oil in the O-ring. It's a good idea to write the date and hours on the filter when you put a new one on. Okay, so this is where the stationary power engine is at. You got a fuel tank. That's an old water pressure tank from a camper. I have a Chevy 2500 clutch fan without the clutch. Just kind of used what I had there for the water pump pulley and mounting it and whatnot. Here's a shroud from the 2500 as well. Frame that goes above and hooks down to the skid, just so it has a point in the middle there that I can lift it and move it around in my bucket loader. Kept it really simple. I do need to put a temperature gauge on this thing. I have this different oil pressure gauge that is already broken, so that's great. Anyways, I'll fire it up real quick just to kind of check it out. It's got a muffler now. It's just a generic tractor muffler with a flap on it. I got a throttle here and choke. good enough. give it one turn clockwise. mean, they're still there, but I don't know, it doesn't seem too bad. I'll go a half turn, see what that does. Well, the planer did the job. I wish I knew just how long it's been sitting around. Came with this old flat belt and the thing just kept falling apart. We were working with it and all of a sudden something would be flapping, and it would be that belt, of course. We just kept trimming off the parts of the belt that were coming undone. Blades need to be sharpened. When looking at the very edge of the blade, there's just little chips taken out, and that leaves grooves in the wood. It was doing pretty well for, I mean, just giving it a go. I really can't believe we didn't have much issues. Basically, the biggest issues we had were ourselves. Just trying to figure out how much to take out, how much was too much, or it was difficult using the surface gauge, but it gives you a rough idea where you are. We were mainly counting the turns on this handle to know how much we were taking out each time. So obviously we started with our thickest board, and once when we got going, we were just doing a half a turn at a time. It seems to be a full turn is a 16th and a half turn is a 32nd. But for the most part, it worked pretty good. I definitely feel like we could have overdriven this, but it's fine the way it is. It definitely feeds a little slow. It does have this option of 2 different speeds for the feed, but I feel like it would overdrive the blade. I'm not sure. That's probably more so for softwood. But again, without trying, I don't know. It was working pretty well the way that it was. But if we overdrive it, it'd be a little faster, and there would also be plenty of blade speed just to know for sure that the blade doesn't end up getting overdriven. But I'll get the thing sharpened. It'd definitely be real cool to see how it pans out after that. We really didn't have much trouble. I'm still totally baffled at how well this thing planed. Well, overall, to go from a seized up old planer to an old planer that works, I'd say this is definitely a success. It's worked out really well. There's not an awful lot that's invested in this thing, and it sure beats some little rink-a-dink electric planer. I mean, it might be a janky setup, but it gets the job done. That's for sure. So anyways, if you like this type of stuff, subscribe, check out my other videos. So do yourself a favor, go out to the garage, go work on that project, because the only way it's going to get done is if you go and do it. Good luck reviving your 2002 Ryobi planer in 100 years. Ha!